Okay, tests of significations, estimation and all that, applied statistical methods, regression, forecasting time series. Okay. Sampling. Sampling, you can learn it yourself. It's just theory. You have different types of sampling and when to use which one. It's completely theory. You can just learn it. I recommend everybody to finish off that first for your exam because, as I told you, there is no problem solving. It's theory and it's easy to understand. You don't have to actually memorize it. That's a good scoring one. And I'll be doing block 1 and block 3 because those are the questions which are slightly it's lengthy and important, and you'll be getting questions for each question will be like 7 to 8 marks, so we'll try to cover those in our classes. So what is statistics? Can you tell me what is statistics? Can someone tell me what is statistics?
Making sense of data, organizing data and making it presenting it in a way that gives us more information about the data that we have.
Okay, so it's usually statistics we deal with very huge, large data. So we have a large amount of data. We collect the data and then we organize it, present it in a very easily understandable manner, like you said. And when we are presenting it, there is a purpose to it. So data is collected. For what purpose we are collecting that data? Based on that, our presentation will also vary. And whatever analysis we do with that data, that will also vary depending on the purpose. So basically, statistics is collecting the data. You have various definitions for this. I'll give certain examples for statistics also. So what is statistics? It's a process that involves collection of data. Then we classify the data, means we group them into various categories. Collection, after that we do the classification. After classifying the data, we present it in various forms. We can put it in the form of a table or a graph, again depending on the purpose of data collection. We can do that. So collection, classification, presentation, and we analyze the data. After analyzing, we draw a conclusion from that data. Okay, it's the process. I have not written the proper definition. I've just written the steps in the process. For theoretical bookish definitions, you can refer the study material. So statistics, what it has is we collect huge data. It is a scientific process. That's how the definition starts. It's a scientific process which involves collection of data, classification of the data into various groups, presenting it in an easily understandable format, analyzing the data for the required purpose, and drawing a conclusion out of it. So example, now if we talk about these online classes during COVID times, so there are again there are a lot of things, a lot of topics you can discuss about. Here we can collect, there is a problem domain. Based on the problem, we are going to decide from where we collect data and what all data we need. For example, we need to first define the problem. So here let us see effectiveness of online classes. Suppose this is your topic, effectiveness of online classes. Now what all data is required here? We need to collect data about is the attendance proper. See, when we say effectiveness, what do we mean? Many students need to attend, means attendance should be good. interaction should be good. That is engaging the students, faculties, all of them. They should be engaging in the class actively, and then understandings should be good, and they should be performing well in the exams. Means their marks should also be better, right? That if everything is improved, we say that it is more effective. But we cannot draw like that one specific conclusion. We cannot draw. So what we do is there are various parameters here involved. So we can measure everything based on those parameters. Now I need collection of data for all these things. So when we collect data, again I can decide this effectiveness of online classes for whom I am checking. Is it for kids, school children, or is it for PU students, or is it for degree or postgraduate, or is it for professional courses, or is it for working people? That matters. Now if I have to collect for everybody, that can also be done. Okay, so now we collect all the data, and then after collecting all the data, we group them into say categories like school, PU, and primary, higher primary, PUC, and then college, post graduation, and working people. All these things we will figure out. Then after doing that, we present it in the form of a table or a chart. We analyze, and then we come to a conclusion. So based on all these things, let me assume I draw a conclusion like this. See, conclusion will not be like, yes, online classes are effective. No, online classes are not effective. That way, it won't be conclusion of statistics. Again, it is a very detailed conclusion. Say, for example, online classes are better in terms of attendance. This is what IGNOU has observed, and that is the reason now they're planning to conduct all the classes going forward online only, because most of them are working people, and study centers are few. So the distance will be more. Most of you, even on in spite of working throughout the week, on Sundays, if you have to come to a 9 o'clock class at this study center, chances are that most of them don't turn up, right? Because of various reasons, like traveling takes time, and you're tired, all these things. Since it's online classes, you can attend from home. So better in terms of attendance, more students are attending, and attendance is also good. Everybody is attending all the classes, so better in terms of attendance. And how about understanding? Understanding is not a problem for people like you who are working. So there is no problem in attention, like for kids, for school children, they have to sit in the classroom. If they're at home, they'll get distracted. So that type of distraction is less for people like you, because you know the importance of these subjects. You can sit in a quiet place and you can make notes out of it. You don't need that classroom monitoring that is required for school children, right? So attention in the class, or understanding is not affected because of online classes for you people. That is one thing. And performance in the exam, then that according to that you can performance is better, or performance no change. Okay, so performance again depends on how much you have prepared. Attendance wise, it is more, and it is better for the organization also to execute this, because they can combine people from multiple areas into one classes, something like this. The conclusion is not going to be just yes or no. That is not the conclusion of statistics. It's always going to be a detailed conclusion from the analysis done. This is one again COVID only, or let me take cancer medicine. Cancer medicine is designed, a new medicine is manufactured. We need to find the effectiveness of this medicine. Now we have to collect data from multiple people. Now when I collect data from multiple people, I first divide them into age groups. So I will collect from 0 to 5 years, that is very tiny infant kids to 5 years. Then I'll take from 6 to say 12, that is one category I'll take. These are children. I'll take all these teenage kids as one category, and then I will take so 21 to 35, I'll group it in one category. 36 to 50, or say 55, I'll group in the next category. 51 onwards up to say 70 plus. Like this I can group. Now in this also, here I can further divide into two groups with other health issues, without any other health issues. Okay, here also with and without other issues. Maybe here also if required I can include. Now I have to find out this medicine should be given to the volunteers of all these groups, and there are certain groups that might respond very well, certain groups might respond averagely, there is a improvement but very slow improvement, and maybe for certain groups that is without any other health issues, for them it is very effective, but with other health issues, so if they're having some other medications also, then it is affecting and they're not getting cured. So based on this, we can come to a conclusion. So what's going to be our conclusion? It is 80% effective on patients between say 6 to 35. Okay, in these three groups, it is 80% effective and 75%, or let me take 60%. 60% effective on patients between the age groups on patients between age groups 36 to 70 without other issues, okay, without other health issues, and it's not recommended for 70 plus and for 36 to 70 with other issues. Okay, something like this. So there is going to be a detailed conclusion of this type. Understood this conclusion? No? For these three groups, we can confidently give the medicine. If it is the next two groups, these two groups, for these two groups, if I have to give medicine, I need to check whether they have other health issues or not. If they have other health issues, this medicine should not be given. Otherwise, we can give this medicine. There is a 60% effectiveness. Based on that, we can change the treatment plan. If they have other issues, then this is not recommended, and for people who are above 70, this is not recommended. So this is the kind of conclusion that we draw. And here, most important thing that you have to understand is, when I say 80% effective, it does not mean the disease gets cured 80%. It means 80% of the patients are cured. 80% of patients have improved their health condition. Understood, no?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, based on the conclusion, we draw the tables or...
No. First, you classify the data into various groups. You draw a table. After that, drawing that table, you do various calculations. After all the calculations, you come to this conclusion.
Okay, ma'am. Got it.
Based on conclusion, you will not draw table. Based on table, after that, lots of calculations are done. What calculation you do again depends on for what purpose you are doing this analysis. Then based on all that calculations, you will come to the conclusion. And the conclusion will look like this. It won't be like yes or no in real life, but we are not going to do this detailed kind of analysis. There's a question given and they'll ask us to find some conclusion. We'll find out some measures and then we'll get to this conclusion. So what I mean to say is, here when I say 80% of patients have 80% effective, when I say 80% effective, it doesn't mean for each and every person the cure is 80%. It's not like that. It means 80% of the patients are seeing an improvement. How much improvement each patient sees depends on their lifestyle, but there is an improvement. Other 20% people are not at all improving using this medicine. That is the meaning of the conclusion. So 20% of the patients are not getting cured. That is the meaning. Now, when a patient arrives at a hospital, if I have to give this medicine, I will not know whether he belongs to the 80% or 20%. We have to just give the medicine. Since it is 80% effective, we'll assume that he will see the benefit, we'll give the medicine, we'll monitor. Maybe it may not work for him. So that is the conclusion of statistics. So it may or may not be applicable for an individual. Whatever conclusions we draw, it is an overall conclusion. It is not applicable to an individual. So when I say it is 80% effective, it doesn't mean every patient will have 80% cure. So when I have a patient, he may or may not get cured when I give this medicine. It is not 100% effective. Okay, 100% effective means whoever it is, definitely there will be an improvement in the health. So that is 100% effectiveness. You might have seen, no, when you are taking some medicines, some people get cured. Like if you have a headache, if you take this particular tablet, it doesn't make any difference for you. Whereas another person in your same family, for them, their headache will get cured with that tablet. But for you, it doesn't work. So you have to use something else. So all of you would have come across such situations for the common issues like headache, cold, cough, fever, and all that. Some of the medicines work for some people and some that does not work. It depends on various factors. So such conclusion is what we can draw using statistics. So this is what is statistics, examples, purpose, and where you can use. Okay, so where you can use in all those things you can learn from this first unit material. I will not take much time for this first unit because it's mostly introduction. So we collect data. So now we have this procedure, no, collection of data. When we collect data, data is classified into two types. One is primary data, one is secondary data. Types of data. Again, see, I'm giving like a important points only, not detailed notes. So there are two types. Write down this. First is primary data, or we can say primary source of data also. This is secondary source or secondary data. Primary data means data that I collect for my problem, collected for a particular problem. Means I have defined a problem, right? Like say I am right now I've started doing research on some psychology based research. It is for since I'm into a lot of teaching from past 10 years, I'm doing this teaching, and I'm teaching for graduates, postgraduates, and also for working people. So I just wanted to do a research on their behavioral patterns for students, for graduates, and also for working people, so that we can devise some mechanisms, some practices to improve their performance, whether they are a student or whether they are an employee, how the stress or how the deadlines, all these things affect their mental health, and based on that what suggestions can be done. So something like that related to that field, I'm doing some research. Now if I collect data directly from my students, if I give them a form and collect data directly from them, that is called as primary data. Okay, collected for a particular problem domain. Now I am doing a research for that. Whatever information I want, I directly collect from the people. So when I say I collect from the people, I need not go personally contact and collect them. I can even have some assistants who do that for me. Whatever, for this particular problem, if I'm collecting data, that is all primary data. Secondary data means data that is already available. Data already available we are using, like census data. Example is census data, and we have agricultural data. There are some organizational names for this. You can check this material. I think something like UNESCO, something and all is given here. You can just check. Kinds of data we have. Where is it? It's not given. Okay, anyway. If you have data collected from standard sources, then that is called as secondary data. Already data is present. All you have to do is just use those data, and that data is available for public use. It's not like somebody else's data you're using, not like that. These are government data, reliable data collected by them. It has everything, all the details required. You are going to take only what information is required for you. Okay, that is secondary data using already available sources, data already available. And to collect primary data, there are various ways. You can create so primary data, ways of creating or methods of data collection. So since you're collecting data, you need to know how to collect the data. Methods of data collection, again, there are types and categories. I'll just write overall. Interviews can be telephonic interview, personal interview. You can directly talk to a person and collect the data. You can call them and collect some data. So that is a telephonic interview and personal interview. You can give them a questionnaires. So questionnaires is where you give them question and answer. They're supposed to answer certain questions, and based on the answers, you will get to know certain details. And the questionnaires can be descriptive. You can send them over mail. You can just hand it over. If I come to your college, like I can give a form to everybody, ask you to fill up manually, or I can send a Google form to many people and ask them, request them to fill it. It can be subjective or it can be MCQs. If it is MCQ, then I will know exactly what information I want, only that time collecting. If it's descriptive, it becomes again little more processing, because they would have given some information and I have to try to get what information I want from their answers. So interviews or questionnaires, and then direct observation. That is called as observation method. Observation method is, suppose you have to find out how a workplace is there. You can work there and find out. Or you can go to that place, observe the way people are organizing the task, and then find out how systematic they're doing and all that. So that is based on observation. And what else, etc. So in this, as I told you, we have categories. I have not listed categories, so it looks a very small list. So different types of interviews, or giving specific questions and then getting answers from them, or you just observe them directly and then get some data. So this is all various methods of data collection. So after you collect the data, next you have to classify them, means you have to group them. Grouping depends on your problem statement, but what type your what domain or what problem is you're expecting to solve, accordingly grouping is done. Usually we can have same frequent, the interval length can be same or different. Usually for problem solving, we will have same interval length. Means if you observe here, grouping where I have done here, how many ages I have considered. I've considered 5 different ages, right? Or I can take 6 different ages. 0, that is infants. Also, if I take, I'm considering 6 different age categories here. Here also, I'm considering 6 different age categories, but here I'm considering 8 age categories, including 13. And here I'm considering 15 age categories. Here also 15. Here I'm considering 20 different ages, and this is unlimited, like above 70, whatever. So the interval is not same, no? So this kind of classification is also possible, or you can give very specific classification like 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, where I am just dividing them into 10 age groups. This classification we can do again based on our requirement, but for all the statistics problems that we are going to solve in our class, the interval length is going to be equal. We will not have unequal intervals like this. Okay. That is classification. Presentation, we usually write it in table, but there are other forms of presentation. We will discuss that. That will come as a question in your exam also. You can give a textual presentation, means detailed paragraph based presentation. Okay. Presentation. First one is textual presentation, means detailed paragraph. Detailed information, whatever you have collected, everything you are mentioning in detailed records, because you don't know what all information you might require later. So instead of discarding anything as not important, you are collecting everything in detail. So this is also required for certain types of research. So textual representation, or you can have tabular representation, which is what we are going to do in all the problems. We will write tables and we will note down all the values. Or you can put it in the form of diagrams. So when we say diagrams, we have various things. We have histogram, we have pie chart, okay, bar diagram, all these things. That is diagrammatical representation. All that I'll write under one single category. Diagrammatic representation. This is how we present data. Okay, next analysis. Different types of analysis are there. Each one is a different chapter for you. Like we have measures of central tendencies, measures of dispersion, and then correlation, regression. We have chi-square test and we have t-square distribution. A lot of things. Those are all different analysis. Conclusion is based on what analysis you have done. Understood the overall process?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, data, I told you we have primary data and secondary data, and a variable that represents a value. So that is called as a variable here. And there are two types of variables in statistics. We have discrete and continuous variables. I'll give you examples for that. This is an important question. They've asked many times. Random variable or just a variable, write down. Variable in statistics. So you have two types. You have discrete variable, continuous variable. Discrete variable means it will have a list of values. It will list of definite values. Example is marks of a student. Marks of a student in one subject. Now, what all marks a student can get in a particular subject out of 100? Yes, what all values a student can get for in an exam in one particular subject out of 100?
Yes. It will vary from 0 to 100.
Yes, it will vary from 0 to 100, but will he get some marks like 72.56? Is that possible?
No, ma'am.
No, right? So from 0 to 100, I have 101 discrete values, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Means I know exactly what values are possible. That is 0 or 1 mark or 2 or 3, like this up to he might score 99 or 100. But student will not even score 3.5. If the score is 3.5, we will declare the marks as 4. You know that. So when we are announcing marks, we won't even say 0.5. And assuming this is board exams, don't think of any competitive exams and all that, where you have decimal marking also. So assume that it is a board exam where a student is writing an exam for 100 marks. A student can get any of these 101 values. Here, the number of values are more, but still I know exactly what values are there. So there is a list and I know exactly definite values I know. So if it's going to be 99 or 100, student is not going to get 99.1, 99.2 and all that. Okay. So from 0 to 100, how many values are there? 101 values are there. So this kind of things, if I write, these are all called as discrete variable. Okay. This is first example. Second example, throwing a dice. You throw a dice. What all values are possible?
5, 6.
Only 6 values. You don't get less than 1, you don't get greater than 6, and you don't get any in between values also. So like this, if you know exactly these are the values, this many values are possible, that such variables are called as discrete variables. Continuous variables means you cannot write how many values are there. So sometimes you can write a range, minimum to maximum. Sometimes you can't even write a practical range, and the values are not definite. Say for example, indefinite values. It's not infinite, but indefinite values. Example is temperature in a day. It keeps varying. No? Temperature in a day keeps varying, and it can be any of the value. I can't say there's going to be 32 degrees Celsius or 33 degrees Celsius. In between, not possible. That I can't say. See, it does not mean discrete will not have decimal values. You can have decimal values, but again that has to be definite. Say after 32 it has to be 32.5. Next should be 33. Then it is discrete only. Understood? Because I know from 32 to 33 you have only 3 values. 32 you will not have 32.1, 32.12 and all. You'll have next is 32.5 only. If it crosses 32.5, it's 33 only. Like that, if I can tell surely, it is discrete. Here I can't tell like this, no. It can be any value like 32.1213. It can be anything. So such a kind of values where you may have or you can have other values also in between. They are called as continuous values. A temperature in a day, and then if you write weights of a group of people, weights of students in a class. Now when I say weight, I can't say student weight is going to be like say 55 kgs, next is 56 only. Nobody will have weights between 55 to 56, can't say, right? One person's weight can be 55.12, another person's weight can be 55.2, and how many values come in between and all, we can't say. So such type of variables are continuous variables. Understood, no? These are the two types of variables with examples. Here example they have given for discrete variables. Discrete variables there are examples here. In some cases data may not be numerical. Here number of items failing to meet specifications in a lot of 100 items. Daily number of customers visiting a particular shop. Hourly number of telephone calls received by an operator. Life of an electric bulb in hours. Okay, these are all example of variables. In this, variables take only some isolated values, means independent definite values. Example, number of items failing to meet specifications in a lot of 100 items can be 0 to 100. Means you have a box of 100 items, how many of them are approved and how many are rejected. So it can be all 0, all can be approved. Okay, in that the number of items which gets rejected are 0, or it can be all 100 rejected also. A whole number between 0 to 100 only, never a figure like 3.7. Such values are called as discrete values. See here again they've given usually integers only, means usually whole numbers, but need not be always. So it can be decimal values also, but even that decimal values will be fixed values. This is discrete variables. So values jump from one point to the next with no possible measures in between. Like I told you, it's going to be 44 marks or 45 marks. There won't be any in between values. Such values are discrete variables. And distance between 2 points, interval between 210.5 and 320.6 can take any value. Such variables are called continuous variables. Variables representing height, weight, age, time to complete journey, temperature are all called as continuous variables. You can give them as examples. Okay, next is grouped and ungrouped data. Ungrouped data means list of values like this. Grouped data means see we are grouping it 94 to 95, 95 to 96. Like in the examples that I gave you, 0 to 10 years, 11 to 20 years. Like that, if I group it, that is called grouped data. Just if I give list of values, that is called as ungrouped data. Okay, then you have population and sample. Population means all the values that comes under a particular problem domain is called as a population. Sample is only certain values which we take for our analysis. For example, here I gave two examples. One is effectiveness of online class. Will I be able to collect all the data from every online learner across the country? Is it possible? No. So for this, what is population? For this, population is all students. All students or all learners becomes population. Here, people who are not learning will not come under population because this is effectiveness of learning in online classes. Effectiveness of learning in online class. If I take that as the domain, problem domain, then population will include all learners. Again, I can limit it to a geographical location. Like I can limit it only to Bangalore or only to Karnataka or only to the country, India. Like that, I can limit if required. So all learners become population. But what is sample? I will not be able to take data from all learners of the state. It's not possible. So what I do is I take samples. So when I do samples, I have to be very careful to include enough number of values under each category. So I will take data from say 50 students, 50 school students. In this 50 school students, maybe 25 students are primary and remaining 25 are higher secondary. Like that, I will decide. I will take from 50 PUC students. I'll take 50 from graduates and I'll take 50 data from postgraduates, and then I'll take 50 from working people like this on distance education courses, and I might also take 50 details from this certificate courses and all they do from private institutes. That also I can consider if I want. So this is sample. Okay. Now tell me in this all adult males residing in India, is it a population or sample?
Population.
That is a population. Second option, second question, 20 cancer patients chosen to participate in a program to test a new medicine.
Sample.
So these are samples. So when the second example that I took, testing cancer medicine, all cancer patients will be population. I'm choosing only this 20 patients for experiment, and these people are sample. So option C, all the AIDS patients who could conceivably be given a new treatment for the disease. So
Population.
is it population or sample?
Population.
Population, because we are considering all patients. Okay, now tell me here which of the variables are discrete. And they have given a domain also. Data on the variables below were recorded for a study in a school in Delhi. Which of these are continuous and which are discrete? Age.
Continuous.
Age is a continuous variable. Year of birth.
That is also continuous because it can, it's discrete, ma'am, because if it is a school, there will be a age limit for it.
Yes. So since they have given it is a school, all the students are going to be, all those who are studying there will be between 5 years to 15 years. If we take like that, 15 or 16 years. So their year of birth will also be between a specific value. And see here, no, you have to think values taken by those variables. If I take year, value will be say 1991. 1992, 1993, like that. There won't be in between values, right? Will you write a value like 1991.0 3, 4, something like that? No. So since it is discrete values, it is discrete variable. Height?
Height is continuous. It might vary, ma'am.
Yes, height is a continuous variable. Number of students admitted to the school in a calendar year.
It might differ.
So is it discrete or continuous?
Continuous.
Sorry?
Ma'am. Continuous, ma'am.
Discrete.
Why discrete? Why continuous?
Number of students admitted to the school in a calendar year might differ from one year to the other. It is not constant.
Okay.
So I said discrete.
Okay. Another student who said continuous. What is the reason? Why you think it is continuous? I don't know. Even I am confused. So just let me check. Because it's continuous variable, it is not about having decimal value or not, but it is about whether the value is definite or not. I'm looking for the answers. Here B and D are discrete. ACE they're considering continuous. B and D discrete. Okay. Number of students admitted to the school in a calendar year, they have taken as discrete. Okay, fine. Weight is continuous, we have just discussed. Okay, so that is about types of variables. All of you are understanding, no? I mean, what we have done is only introduction and
Yes, ma'am.
some theory concept.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
next is frequency distribution. So frequency is number of times a value occurs. That is frequency. For ungrouped data, frequency means that how many times a particular value occurs. So frequency distribution of class intervals means if you are grouping the data, then how many values will occur in that interval, that is frequency. Okay, from here onwards, we will have problems. Please write down the notes properly. Frequency distribution. Frequency distribution. So all of you know grouped and ungrouped data. What is ungrouped data? Just a list of values if I give you, that is ungrouped data. If I group it into categories, then if I group them into class intervals, then it is with minimum maximum values. Then it is called as grouped data. Okay. With reference to ungrouped data, in this, see here most of the formulas I'll be giving you like a summary. If it is ungrouped data, what is the formula? If it's grouped data, what is the formula? That's how I'm going to give. So frequency distribution meaning in terms of ungrouped data is number of times a value occurs. That is frequency. In case of grouped data, frequency is number of times a value occurs. In case of grouped data, number of values in a given interval is frequency. Frequency is number of values in a class interval. Okay. Finish writing. I'll give examples. Finish writing this.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any repeated values here? No repeated values, no. See, like this, if I give you values and if I ask you to find frequency distribution, this is ungrouped data. Here groups are not given. Okay, this is the kind of ungrouped data. But let me delete this. So this is not for frequency calculation. Example here, you take scores of marks of a student, something like that. Okay, values are like this: 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 5, 4, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I have 10 values here. Now frequency is for value 3. I should write value and the frequency. So what is value? 3. How many times it has occurred? How many times has 3 occurred? Twice.
2.
4 is
2.
2 times. 5?
3.
3 times. 6?
1.
1 time only. 8?
8.
1 time.
9. 1.
9 is 1 time. Okay. This is frequency of each value. Now total will give you 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the
It
number
should
of
give
values.
10.
This is the number of values. Okay. Totally I have 10 values. There are repeated values. So I'm just writing frequency of each value. The value occurs most is 5. Understood, right? This is frequency distribution of ungrouped data. This is ungrouped data. Here, there is no group. Grouped data means like this. This is grouped data. This is example for grouped data. Here I have class interval. Between 0 to 1, there are 3 values. Between 2 to 3, there are 13 values. Understood? Between 4 to 5, there are 36 occurrences. It means 4 might be occurring some 10 times. 5 might be occurring 26 times. Okay. Here, when we say 0 to 1, 3 values are there. It can be all 3 zeros, or it can be all 3 ones, or it can be 0, 1, 0, or 0, 1, 1. Okay, 2 zeros and 1, 1, or 1, 0 and 2 ones. It can be anything that we cannot find out. Understood, no? So when I say frequency, it denotes number of values in that interval. Number of values between 0 to 1 means number of times that those values occur from 0 to 1. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now here, if I convert this to groups, class interval, I have up to 10, no? So I will write 0 to 2 or 1 to 2. Okay. 1 to 2, right? 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 8 to 10. Like this, if I write class intervals here, how many values are there between 1 to 2 in this list?
0.
0 values. So from this class interval, I don't have any values. Between 3 to 4?
4.
4 values are there. Here I have 2 3s and I have 2 4s. 5 to 6?
4.
4 again. 7 to 8?
1.
Only 1. This is 9 to 10. 9 to 10 is 1.
1.
1.
Again here total is 10. This is the total number of values. Understood, no? In grouped data, we will not know. When I say 4 here, I will not know that Each one is, in this example, you see 3 is occurring twice, 4 is occurring twice. But in this example, 5 is occurring 3 times and 6 is occurring once. That's why I got this 4 as the total number of values. In grouped interval, I will not know which value is occurring how many times. I will only know how many values are occurring between that given interval. Okay. This is frequency distribution for ungrouped and grouped data. Next, you have cumulative frequency. In cumulative frequency, you have two types. Less than cumulative frequency and greater than cumulative frequency. Less than cumulative frequency, greater than cumulative frequency. So I'll write this one only as an example. So cumulative frequencies, we should add up the frequencies until that class. That is cumulative frequency. Here scores and frequencies I have written same way like this one. What I have written like this, we have written some scores and frequencies, right? Now I will write cumulative frequency here. Usually we will write less than cumulative frequency only, unless and until mentioned. We won't, if I just write CF, cumulative frequency, it means it is going to be less than only. Now less than cumulative frequencies, keep adding one by one. More than means from bottom you have to keep adding. Now first frequency is 3. Next is with this 3 you add 13, which is 16. Now with this 16 you add the next one 36. How much it is? 52. With this 52 you add 35. That gives you 87. With 87 you add 13, you will get 100. This is less than cumulative frequency. Keep adding frequencies. For more than cumulative frequency, same thing, but you have to keep add from the bottom. So first value you write here is 13. With this 13 you add 35. You will get 48. With 48 you add 36. You will get 70 plus 14, 84. With 84 you add 13. It gives you 97. With 97 you add 3. You will get 100. Understood? Total values are 100. So that is going to be your total here in the less than cumulative frequency, and that's going to be the first one in more than cumulative frequency. Understood? Now what is the meaning of this cumulative frequencies? Frequency, you know, between 6 to 7 we have 35 values, right? When I say less than, it means less than 7 I have 87 values. 0 to 7, how many values are there? 87 values are there. Understood? How many values are more than 3? Then I have 97 values that are more than 2, 2 and above. That is 97. Understood? How many values are 4 and above? 84. From 4 onwards, 84 values are there.
Ma'am, could you repeat this? How to check the values? I was noting down. I didn't pay attention.
See, 0 to 1, 3, 2 to 3, 16 you have. 2 to 3, 13 you have. When I add these two, it means from 0 to 3, I have totally 16 values, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Understood. 0 to 1, 3 values are there. 2 to 3, 13 values are there. If I ask you how many values are there between 0 to 3, if I ask you this question, what you will do is you will add 0 to 1, 3 values, 2 to 3, 13 values. Together is 0 to 3, which is 16 values. So from less than cumulative frequency, I can directly get that here.
Okay.
So if I ask you how many values are there which are less than 7, less than equal to 7, then you have to say against 6 to 7 I have 87, no? So there are 87 values that are less than equal to 7. Understood?
Thank you.
So this is cumulative frequency. Next is relative frequency. Relative frequency is frequency of the given value or given class interval. Given value will be for ungrouped data, and given class interval you have to take for grouped data divided by total frequency. That is relative frequency. Write down the formula, I'll tell you how to calculate. Finished writing?
Yes, ma'am.
Now I'll take this same table. What's the total frequency here? 100. I'll write relative frequency. Relative frequency of each class interval is frequency of that class divided by total, which is 0.03. Understood, no? Now what's the relative frequency for next one? 13 by 100. Here 36 by 100. This is 35 by 100, 13 by 100. When you add all this, you will be getting 1.00. Add all that, you check if you want. 0.03 plus 0.13 plus 0.36. All this if you add, you will get 1 as the total. This is relative frequency. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Here you have 100. Even if you don't have 100 as total, here you will get 1 only. Because whatever is the relative frequency of each class interval, you are dividing that by total number of frequencies. So when you add all those decimal parts, finally you will be getting 1. Okay.
Ma'am, is it like we finally get 1 always, or it depends?
Always you get 1.
Okay.
Always total of relative frequencies will always be 1.
Thank you.
How many students? What percentage? Okay, so we do this. Problem will solve. See here, total scores obtained by 50 students in a test are given below, and the test is of 100 marks. Answer the following question on the basis of the data given above. Random variable x. X is a score. X is a value, marks obtained in psychology test. That is x. Is it a random variable or discrete variable? Sorry, is it random, discrete variable or continuous variable?
Discrete.
Continuous.
Discrete variable, because we have just discussed this as an example. Marks obtained in a particular subject, it is discrete variable. So here it is discrete. What is the minimum and maximum score from this data?
Minimum is 29 and maximum 97.
Okay, minimum is 29, maximum is 97. Using classes this as an interval, draw frequency distribution of x. Now I need to draw frequency distribution for this. Draw in the sense I have to draw a table, that's it. Now intervals I have to take like this. So first interval is, right, Ci, that is class interval. What is the first class interval? They've asked us to start from 20 to 29. So 20 to 29 is the first interval. 30 to 39. 40 to 49. 50 to 59, 60 to 69, 70 to 79, 80 to 89, 90 to 99. Okay. Next, we have to write frequency. Count the values and write. That's it. Between 20 to 29, how many are there? Count here.
0.
No value. There is one value. No.
29. Yeah.
That's all. One value is there between 20 to 29. I have underlined this so that I won't count it again. 30 to 39, I'll check. 1. 2. That's all, no? Next, 40 to 49. 1. 2. That's all. Correct me if I'm wrong anywhere. 50 to 59. 1, 2, 3, 60 to 69. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Next, 70 to 79. 1, 2, 3, 4,
60 to
5,
69,
6.
ma'am, 12 values.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 80 to 89. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 90 to 99. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here I have left one value, that is 63. So I'll put that here.
Hello,
12.
ma'am.
Now to check whether you have calculated all the values, see I have underlined. So since I had underlined one of the values that in 60s I had left, I can write that later. Now find the total here. 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 2, 5 plus 3, 8. 8 plus 12, 20. 20, 34, 46, 50. 50 students, and see that is what is given here. Don't just add up. You add it, and if you're getting 50, then you have calculated correctly. If you're not getting 50, then your calculation is not correct. So that's all. This is creating a frequency distribution. What percentage of students score above pass marks of 50? Now, what is pass marks? Pass marks is not given, no? What is passing marks? Passing marks is not given only. What to consider? Okay, how many of the students score between 50 to 79? To check 50 to 79, between 50 to 79, no, what you have to do is 50 to 59, 60 to 69, 70 to 79. These three you have to add, which is 26 plus 3, 29 students. Okay, 29 students have scored marks between 50 to 79. And what percentage of students, let us take assuming, because since they have not given here, you assuming 40% as passing marks. How many of them have taken more than 40? That those are passed. Okay. So how many are there here? From 40 you count.
Ma'am, as per the
Assuming
syllabus, they
40%
have
as
given the pass
sorry?
mark as 50.
Where have they given?
What percentage of the students score above the pass marks of 50? That
Okay,
means
okay,
pass mark
sorry.
is being
Yes,
shown as
yes. I'm just thinking out of 50 students. I didn't read the question properly. Yeah. What percentage of students score above the pass marks of 50? So passing mark itself is 50. 50 is passing. 50 and above who all have scored, they have all passed. So how many students have passed? Number of students passed. So calculate all those who have scored 50 and above. From here, this is 29 plus 12. 12 plus 12 is 24. 24 plus 14 is 38. 38 plus 7 is 45. Number of students passed is 45. So percentage of passing. Okay, pass percentage of students is 90%. 45 students have passed out of 50. Okay, this gives you 90%. Means how many, what is the pass percentage of students who have passed? Understood, no? Number of students who have passed is this many. 45 students have passed. Or you can even do like this. Totally 50 students are there. No. From the students who have failed are these three groups, which is 5 only. From 50, if you remove 5, you will get 45, which is going to be total of all this. So number of students who have passed is 45. Out of 50 students, 45 have passed. So pass percentage is 90%. Is that clear? This type of question is very commonly asked. Any doubts so far?
No.
No, ma'am.
All of you are understanding? I think only 2-3 students are responding. How about others? Is everybody understanding well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Consider following frequency distribution belonging to particular section. What percentage of people earn more than 4,500? What percentage of people earn at least 1,500? Okay. All this I think you can calculate. Graphical representation. Graphical representation, you have different types. Bar diagram is where you write bars like this for every class interval. So 0 to 1, you write up to 3. 2 to 3 is 13. So accordingly, you write just bar diagrams. This is polygon, frequency polygon. Here you mark the frequencies of each class interval. You take the midpoint of the class interval, mark the frequency against it, and just join all the points. And this is called histogram. Histogram is where you have joint bars. This is for continuous frequency distribution. We will do this. I'll tell you the difference between histogram and bar diagram. This is called as ogive curve. Ogive curve is where we use cumulative frequency for the plotting of graph. And pie chart is we will find out the degrees that you have to assign for each class interval. Accordingly, you will draw this diagram. I'll tell you how to draw them. I'm taking previous 3 question papers. You try to solve as many question papers as possible. The more you solve, better it would be. Okay, have to find mean and variance here. Given median value, you need to find the frequencies. Regression line. Oh, 50 marks paper only. Okay. See here in June 21 paper, that is the previous exam. In first section A, 5-mark question is there. You have to construct a continuous frequency distribution of the above data by taking suitable class width. And see in the previous example that we solved, they mentioned to take the intervals as 20 to 29, 30 to 39 like that. Here you can decide what should be your interval, and the frequency distribution needs to be continuous. After that you have to draw histogram for that. That's all. That carries 5 marks. See, this is not continuous distribution. You know what is discrete variable and continuous variable, right? But in distribution also you have continuous distribution and discontinuous distribution. Okay. Here this is not continuous distribution. Continuous frequency distribution means this is a class interval, right? See here, observe clearly. If I take class interval as 20 to 20, then what are the boundary values? This is the lower class limit. Okay. This is lower class boundary and this is a upper class boundary, right? Means maximum value that comes under this class is 20 and maximum value is 29, minimum value is 20. This we will take it as LCB and this will take it as UCB. Here, if my upper class boundary of one class is same as lower class boundary of the next class. Now, what is next class interval in that previous question that we solved? What is next class interval in the previous question?
30 to 39.
30 to 39, right? Now, here what is this one? 30, this is LCB, right?
Yes.
If upper class limit of one class and lower class limit of the next one, if it is same, then it is called as continuous frequency distribution. Here it is not continuous frequency distribution. Okay. In some of the cases, you have to convert the given data to continuous frequency distribution if it is not continuous. Say for example, take frequency distribution 1. This is one example where if the class interval is 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. Here you see this is same as this. This upper class value of the first interval is same as lower class limit of the next interval. Here also 30, 30, 40, 40. If it is same, this is called as continuous distribution. This is not continuous variable. This is continuous frequency distribution. Understood? Now, if there is a value 20, where should I count? Here or here? Count it in the first group. Understood, no? All of you?
Yes, ma'am.
This is continuous frequency distribution where higher limit of one class interval should be same as lower limit of the other class interval. And in the given values, if you have a value 20, include it in the first interval. That is where it belongs to, 10 to 20, there you count it. So don't count it for the next one. But this is how we write frequency distribution. This is continuous frequency distribution. For many problems, the frequency distribution should be continuous. Again, it depends on what type of variable it is. Say it is marks. Then in that case, it doesn't make any difference if you have the values like your previous boundary, that is 20 to 29, 30 to 39. Because I know between 29 and 30, there is not going to be any values, right? So there is no need to write it as 20 to 30 and 30 to 39, not 30 to 40, not necessary, because I know if the value is 29, it will come in this group. If it is 30, it will come in this group. You will not have values between 29 and 30. So this frequency distribution is okay. But sometimes for certain questions, it depends on the value. If they have given what value it is representing, then you can decide whether to keep it like this or whether to convert like this. If they have not given what value is represented by that class interval, then you have to convert this to continuous frequency distribution. How to convert it? Take midpoint of these two values as both boundaries. Here you take 29.5, and for all the lower class boundaries, you reduce 0.5. Understood?
Ma'am, this conversion in the frequency distribution, you explain once more, ma'am, please.
See, it is 20 to 29. Then you have 30 to 39, 40
Yes.
to 49. Here, this and this, it is not same. You have to make it same. For various calculations, this has to be same. It has to be continuous frequency distribution. So how to convert it? Midpoint of these two you take. Midpoint of 29 and 30 is 29.5. Okay. So to convert this, you don't have to do all that calculation. Usually it will be 1 only as the difference. For all lower boundaries, subtract 0.5. For all upper boundaries, increase 0.5. Okay. So for all upper boundaries, you write 0.5 extra. For all lower boundaries, you have to write 0.5 less. So this is going to be 19.5. This will be 29.5. This is going to be 39.5. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. Means conversion is important. It has to be continuous.
Yes. So this boundary and this one should be same. Now for every problem, should you do this? Not necessary. It depends on what value this variable denotes. Say for example, in the previous question, it was marks in a test. So there is no need to convert because I know marks will not be between 29 and 30. So it's going to be either 29 or 30, definitely not in between. Like you will not get any decimal values here, or there is no value between 29 and 30. In this class interval, there is no need to convert it to continuous distribution. You can carry on with this. Suppose sometimes they won't give you what it represents. Here they have given psychology test of 100 marks, that is given here. Suppose it's not given and you don't know what are these values, simply they have given some values. Then since you don't know, make it continuous distribution. Convert it like this and then only you should proceed solving. Is that clear, everyone?
Yeah, it's clear, ma'am.
So now here they have asked us to create a continuous distribution in this question. Here, this previous exam, construct a continuous frequency distribution. So you should write a continuous distribution. It need not be decimal value, but you write the boundaries such that last one of the first interval is same as the first limit of the next interval. Here, what all values are there? Automobile service center performs following number of car services each month, it seems. Okay. Anyway, before that, we will see what all diagrams are there. Diagrammatic representations. Of frequency distribution. Okay. So we had 20 to 29, 30 to 39, no? 40 to 49. Like this, I had that first interval. and then frequency. So this was only one mark, no, one value, and then what are the other values? 2, 2, 3, 12. This is 2, this is 2. Then we had 3, 12. What is the highest one here? 14 is highest. So there was this 14 that was highest, I think. Now what you have to do is, if you have to write a bar diagram, bar graph. Bar graph is only for frequency distributions which are not continuous. Discontinuous frequency distribution, because you will have separate rectangles. And in this y-axis, highest is 14, no? So you write up to 15 or 16, whatever. Okay. This is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and I'll write up to 14. Anyway, I don't need greater than 14. Here I'll write the intervals. Okay, I will write this, I'll take as 0. This is 20. This is 29. Here I'll write 30 to 39. Like this I should write. 20 to 29, it is just 1. So half of this is 1. So write 1 bar here and write the number above that. It's 2. This is for 30 to 39. So between 30 to 39, you write this bar. This is 2. And between 40 to 49, this is also 2 only. Next is 3. That is 50 to 59. Have to write 3. Understood how to write. Next one is 12. So I should write up to 12. This is 60 to 69.
Got it.
These are separate bars. This is bar graph. If you observe, there is a gap here. That is because these numbers are not continuous. This 29 to 30, there is a gap, no? So that creates a gap here in the diagram. And with this gap, if you write, that is called as bar graph. Means you are writing separate bars, separate rectangles for each class interval. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if you have continuous interval like this, second frequency distribution example, if you have class intervals are continuous, like you have 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, something like this. Then here we write histogram. What is histogram? Same as bar chart without gap. Same as bar graph only. Now this is for continuous frequency distribution. Here this is 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Here I'll write 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Here I have to write 10 to 20 is 3. Now for 10 to 20, how will I write it? This is 10, no? 10 to 20, it is 3. So 3 is here. I'll write this bar. Next, 20 to 30, it is 8. So with the same line, I'll be extending here. So these are joint. And 30 to 40 is 5. 5 is here. Understood? So it is same as bar graph. But the difference between that and this is here, they are separated bars. Here we have joint bars. Meaning you yourself will know, because it is 29 and 30, they're not same. Therefore, these lines cannot be joined. Here, this one and this one are same. So we are having that continuous diagrams. Understood, no? Next is frequency polygon. This is another way of representing a diagram given frequency distribution. Frequency polygon is same as your histogram. Your distribution must be continuous. But here you will not not mark such rectangular bars. Instead, you will just mark the midpoints of class interval and join those points. So here we need to find midpoint of class intervals. So 10 to 20, how to find the midpoint? 10 plus 20 by 2, which is 15. Here 25, here 35. Okay. So what we do is, between 10 to 20, midpoint is 15. No, against 15, I'll mark this point. So here I'll not have diagram. I'll not have those rectangles. This is x-axis and y-axis. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now 10 to 20, what is the value? 3. Now I will not mark 10 to 20 as an interval because I'm not drawing a rectangle. I will take the midpoint. Midpoint is 15. Against 15, I will mark a point which is 3. So this is 15 and this is 0.3. Okay. Next is between 20 to 30, midpoint is 25. Against 25, I should mark 0.8. So where is 25? 25 is the middle of 20 and 30 and I will mark 8. Next, 30 to 40, midpoint is 35 and I'm supposed to mark 5. So 30 to 40, midpoint is 35. Against this, I will mark a 0.5. Understood? Now, after marking all these points, start from 0. From 0, you connect this. And this should not be soft curve. This should be straight lines. 0 to this, you draw a line. Okay. Became like a diagram. This you draw a straight line. From this point, you draw a line like this. From this point, you draw a line like this. Okay. Like this you have to do. And the last value, whatever you get, no, the last interval, for that you have to join. Suppose the next interval is 40 to 50. How many have taken here? This is 11 plus 5 is 16. No, I will take 4. So that totally 20 students are there, something like that. This is 45. So 40 to 50, midpoint is 45. Against this, I have to mark 4. Okay, that's all. No more intervals. So from this point, I have to mark 50, which is the highest. Understood, no? Mark the points first. For each class interval, take the midpoint. So from the middle of the interval, you mark those points. Then join all the points. First point is joined to 0. Last point is joined to the maximum value. In this class interval, maximum value is 50. This is frequency polygon. All of you understood these things?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, for this same thing, if you have to write a pie chart, then total is how many? 20 marks, no? 20 students. Sum of all the frequencies is 20. And out of that, how many are there between 10 to 20? 3. So for first class interval, we calculate the degree. Okay. So it is 2 out of 20. And into 360 degrees. This is 36. Okay. Next one is 8. This is 20 to 30. 8 and total frequency is 20. Out of 20, it is 8. Means out of 360, how much will it be? That is how you need to calculate. 2 18s are 36. 8 into 18, how much do you get? 80 plus 64 is 144 degrees. Next one is 30 to 40. For 30 to 40, what is the frequency? 5. Out of total frequency is 20. Into why 360 degrees is because for pie chart, you have 360 degrees in the center of the circle, right? Only that is what you're supposed to change. 5 into 18 is 90 degrees. And last is 40 to 50. And this is 4 out of 20 into 360. This is 40 plus 24, 64 degrees. Now I have got all these degrees. Usually, always, you don't have to add this. If you add this, you will get 360. You can check if you want. Now how to draw this? Draw a circle first. Mark the center of the circle. Draw a line. You need not draw a line here only. You can draw anywhere. Now here you keep the protractor. So mark 36 degrees. So this is going to be 36 degrees. Okay, and this is 36 degrees. You can shade it with some dots, lines, different patterns you shade. This is for the first class interval 10 to 20. Next 144 degrees. So you keep the protractor on this line. Not on the first line. You should keep the protractor on this line. On this line, you keep the protractor and mark 144 degrees. So it will come 36 plus 144 is 180, no? So you will get a straight line here. And this is 144 degrees. Okay. Next is 90 and 60. Will you get 180? I don't think you'll get 180. See how much you will get. This is 36 plus 140 is how much? Have I taken all the intervals? 3854. Okay, this is 2, no? That is why it's wrong. This is 3 actually. I've taken wrongly. None of you told me. 3 into 18 is 54 degrees. Understood, no? The mistake here, it is 3. I wrote it as 2.
Got it, ma'am.
Is the total 360? You're not getting total 360, no? 3 plus 8 is 11 plus 5. 11 plus 5 is 16 plus 4 is 20. Yeah. 3 by 20, 8 by 20, 5 by 20 and 4 by 20. Have I done the calculations correctly? Let me know if there is any mistake.
Last one, 8 into 4, 32. 40 to 50 range. 18 into 4 is given as
72.
Yeah.
4 into 16 is 64. Why did I write? So this is 72 degrees. So total will be 360. Accordingly, you draw this. It's easy to draw. Take any straight line. From this, you have to first mark 54 degrees. This is 54. This is for first class interval plus 144. You will get something like this. This is 144 degrees. Then 90. This is 90 degrees. This is a third interval. And last one is going to be 72. Mark it with the different patterns. Here you put some dotted lines. Here you put some patterns like this. Like this, you just mark it in different patterns. This you put some dots. Here you put dash like this. Something, different patterns. Now this is how you draw pie chart. Okay, for pie chart, take every frequency, divide by the total frequency, and into 360 degrees gives you angle, and mark those angles. Total should be 360. Verify it. If it is not 360, then you have done some mistake. You can rectify. Understood all of these?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So for this question here, we are supposed to draw continuous frequency distribution by taking suitable class width, and we are supposed to draw the histogram of constructed continuous frequency distribution. So here the values are from 15 to 16. I mean, how many values are given? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
30.
28, 29, 30. 30 values are given here. What's the least value? Least value is 10. 37 is there. No, right? No. So what you can do is least is always find minimum and maximum. Accordingly, you create the class width. In this particular question, I found minimum value is 10 and maximum value is 37. You don't have to write that as part of the answer. So here I'm supposed to create create continuous frequency distribution, I will create class intervals as 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40. Okay, only 3 class intervals I have taken. Now I am supposed to write the frequency. Now how many values are there between 10 to 20? Count and write. 20 to 30 and 30 to 40. You count that and write. And then that is going to be the first question's answer. Next, you have to draw histogram for this one. So histogram means you know how to write. It is this continuous bars. Okay, continuous bars. So take 3 points here because you need a histogram. It is continuous. For that, you need to calculate the midpoint. So midpoint of this interval is 15. So this is 35. So whatever frequencies you get,
Ma'am, one doubt.
mark those 3 points. First point, mark it to joint with a 0. Yeah.
Yeah, earlier we had one case where continuous interval you are told to reduce by 0.5 and increase by 0.5. We won't be doing that here.
If it is already given, see, if in the question, if they have given class interval like this, 0 to 9, 10
Okay.
to 19, like this, if they have given, then you make it continuous.
Okay, got it.
Here they have asked us to create continuous only. We will use easy numbers only.
Okay, good.
10 to 20, 20 to 30. When you are doing, don't do that 0.5. You create easy numbers like this. If they have given a distribution which is not continuous, then you cannot continue with that calculation. You first convert it to continuous by increasing 0.5 for upper limits and decreasing 0.5 for lower limits. Here, since I'm only writing, I'm taking easy numbers. Count the frequencies against 15, 25 and 35. Mark these points. First point, join it with a 0. Last point, join it with 40. Okay, that is a frequency polygon. But here for this question, you should write a histogram like this. That's all. That gives you 5 marks. Any doubts?
No, all good.
That is how you collect data, you represent it, classify it, all that. Yeah, that's it. I'll just tell you what all measures you will be learning, and then we'll come back next class. Measure tendency, and then you are learning mean, median, and mode. Mean, median is there. Mode is also there. Okay. And what are dispersion? They have given range, standard deviation, coefficients are there. It's coefficients is not there. Okay. Now that you know how to represent the data, next is you need to know what all measures we calculate. Here we have 2 measures. One is measures of central tendency. Write down this. One by one we will learn in the next class. Measures of central tendency means you will find the average values or the middle values here. Just a second. So measures of central tendency. We learn median, mean, median, and mode. These are the three measures you will learn for central tendency. And then you have measures of dispersion. Measures of dispersion means how much the values are scattered. Okay. For this, you have different measures. You will find range, and then you will have mean deviation, and you will have standard deviation. You have a measure called as variance, and that is square of standard deviation that we will discuss. These are the 6 different measures that you will be finding for a given data, and for each of these you have two formulas, one for grouped data and one for ungrouped data. Okay, wrote all this?
Yes, ma'am.
Any
Yes,
doubts?
No, as of now, ma'am.
Okay, maintain the notes properly because there has to be continuity when you prepare for the exam. All calculations should be present at one place so that it's easy for you to relate what you have learned in the previous class. Now you know what is the frequency, what is midpoint of class interval, all that you know. With this only we will be further continuing our next calculations. For each and every formula over here, I mean for each and every measure, I'll be giving two formulas. So to calculate mean, if it's grouped data, this formula, ungrouped data, this formula, like that, and then for that we will solve questions. Okay, so make sure you maintain. Okay, see you in the next class. I think for these online, this lab sessions also, statistical techniques lab session also, they'll be assigning to me only. I think so. And for that, I will not be taking separately like labs.
Something.
What?
I want to ask something about it. Like in the lab assignments is written statistical software, what it is about?
Excel you have used.
Statistical software
For
also we need to
statistical lab
use Excel,
practical.
ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You have to use Excel. So we will be learning lab sessions, but to learn certain things, theory should also be done. Okay, so when they assign lab sessions from next week, every time if it's lab, as an exam only that I'm explaining, because in lab component they have given so many things using Excel itself to learn all that it is, and they have given more sessions for lab practicals, and to learn all that without knowing theory, it will be difficult. So what we do is theory will learn. The objective is that you will be able to clear your theory and practical exams both with good marks. For practical exam, only what is required, I will teach that. Okay. And for theory, most of the topics we can cover if we are combining this theory and lab.
sure.
Okay. See you all in the next class. Bye bye.
Thank you.